Great. Thank you so much, Angelica, for being here with us today. And
Thank you.
yeah, and a quick introduction. Angelica Clyman is a multidisciplinary artist based in Hollywood, Florida, working in painting, sculpture, installation, and printmaking. Her work explores the history and memory of ordinary, often forgotten places in South Florida, responding to the rapid changes in the region. Solo exhibitions include Things Look Bright All Over and Land of Sunshine, and her work is in the Miami Children's Museum collection. She is a South Florida Cultural Consortium Fellow, Broward County Artist Support Grant recipient, and director of the Rosemary Duffy Larson Gallery in Broward College. Vermont's practice is rooted in honoring cycles of unique places, and she has participated in residencies at Bailey Contemporary Arts Center and Oolite Arts. He teaches studio art at Broward College and has been featured in publications such as City Link and Oxford American Magazine. Clement's multidisciplinary approach invites audiences to reconsider the overlooked aspects of everyday life, celebrating the quiet beauty found in forgotten places and their stories. Her work highlights South Florida's rapid transformation and the often overlooked memories embedded in its landscape. Thank you so much, Angelica, for being here. I really appreciate carving some time out of your schedule to join us today.
Thank you for
How's it
having
going?
me.
Yeah. So how's it going? How are you doing?
Good. Things have
Great.
been busy, but that's a good thing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear that, and so happy that you're here with us. And I'm wondering as it concerns. I remember, you have a couple shows up, right, going up today. Yeah, I mean the one that's open just is the one that's in the Studio 18, and I know you
Yes.
have other projects going on, so that's exciting. And I just wanted to know, you grew up in Hollywood, Florida. And I grew up in Miami, Florida, in Kendall, to be exact. And I'm curious to know how that your upbringing in Hollywood kind of influenced your art.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that if I didn't grow up in South Florida, I might be making work about really different things. When I first started making work, actually, it was figurative. It was about the sacred in the everyday moments, just like celebrating those mundane moments as being just as important as things that maybe society tells you are sacred. Why not our everyday life? That's how I started. And then these figures, I had to place them in backgrounds. And so the backgrounds were my local environment. And a lot of things made the shift happen over time to the work that I'm making now about the history of those places. But one of the things that really impacted me was I was going to take reference photos for my backgrounds. This was when I was in grad school, and my little brother-in-laws, which were kids at that time, I said, "Oh, come with me. We're going to go to, I forget even where we were going. Let's go over here. I want to take some pictures for a painting." And they said to me, "Yeah, let's go, but let's go now because it won't be there long." And they said
Oh,
that in like a
wow.
really innocent way, like they didn't mean anything by it, but it just made me realize that when I was a kid, I had this false sense that things were going to stay the same. That
Mm,
house was
mhm,
always going to be there. That tree was always going to be there. That store was always going to be there. But they're younger than me and they didn't have that sense that because the development was like just so rapidly accelerating. And that was the first thing that like
yeah.
it really hit me. And as my work continued, the people kind of started getting smaller and the places started getting
Mm,
bigger. And then it really became about the places. The places became the portraits. I started to be really interested in the places that I grew up with that were gone. But then as I started to create this really personal work, I would show it and people would say, "Oh yeah, but do you remember this place? And do you remember this place?" And so I said, "No, I never
mm,
heard of that. Tell me about it." And so I
mm.
really became interested in all of the everyday places down here that either are gone or have just dramatically changed.
Yeah. No, I mean, it seems like place is tied into the this autobiographical kind of idea of how it shapes our understanding of like us and then
Yeah.
like the world. So that's remarkable to kind of put into practice. And I'm interested, this is kind of just a question from hearing you sort of say the idea of like the figure got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
How do you see that now? Like, do you see the figure uh adjacent to like painting, or how do you see that now relationship, I guess?
Yeah, so I mean, in the past I really saw myself as a figurative artist. That was the thing I was interested in because I saw the figure as a way of expressing our own thoughts and feelings and experiences. But as I became more interested in the place, the figures kind of started to disappear. So as much as I love looking at figurative work now, I feel like with my new works that don't generally have figures in them, we sort of become the figures, hopefully. Our relationship to the
Yeah.
space, it's us in the space, hopefully, as the viewer.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying because it's something a conversation I've had with someone else before about the idea of the figure being adjacent, like next to the
Mm.
painting or the drawing, not depicting, representing the figure more so, and this really interesting notion, different ideas about the figure. But I also wanted to know because you also work in different media, and I want to know how does that connect to your creative process, the different types of materials you use in your work?
Yeah, so there was a time that I saw myself maybe as a painter or as a sculptor, but as time has gone on, I think of myself as a maker. I really like to create with different media and explore. And so, and my newest work, a lot of my newest works, I'm combining them. I'm becoming more interested in creating little environments, so kind of like vignettes, I guess,
Yeah.
and also exploring what might be a good media for this particular place. So, for instance, one of the places that I visited, there was a lot of broken glass everywhere. And so I wanted to create with broken glass. That logistically had some issues, so I ended up finding a plexi that looked very much like glass. But I
Oh.
was working with like transparency with that, or another place I visited had a lot of concrete. So I cast some concrete,
Ah,
um, or like some of
yeah.
my solar plate prints behind me. I really have been enjoying using those because they involve exposing a plate to the sun. And so the sun is developing the work. And with
Yeah.
so much of my work being about Florida, I've been really enjoying that. So although there are maybe only a handful of media that I've been using lately, I try to pick one that's most appropriate or a few that are most appropriate for the subject. And I'm always learning new ones. So I only started working with concrete maybe like 3 years ago, and I really, really love it. And I'd love to learn glass. And so I'm definitely
Great.
in an experimental phase with media right now.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thinking also about the idea of how the body is like a repository for like knowledge, a repository for no, or I was thinking of another word, but I don't remember exactly now, just forgot. But the repository of knowledge, like this idea, you talk about the vignettes or the dioramas, right? Because it seems like there's like the uh, bunning the florist, right? Is that the one of your
Mhm.
pieces? That sort of appears to be sort of a diorama, but I like the notion of the scale, like the small, like looking at it from a sort of like the distance. It's really interesting. And then you have also to Miami Marine Stadium, your piece, that you use different materials to make, which I find really fascinating. And especially as it concerns the Land of Sunshine exhibition you had. I want to know what was the main idea behind that piece specifically, and maybe if you can just like describe it so
Yeah.
can know.
So with that exhibition, that was the first time I started playing with my exhibition titles coming from old Florida advertisements or tourist ads, with this idea that so much of our history here in Florida comes from tourism. I was born and raised here. My parents came in the 70s, and my mom was visiting really as early as the 50s. And they would tell me these stories. They used to work at restaurants, and oh, the restaurant was only open 6 months out of the year. Or, there was so much of this tourist culture that there were less, locals. And then some of those ads, they sort of call back to this nostalgic time, but they're also misleading, So it's sort of this conflict that we've always had of like everything being so like bright and perfect, but were things always perfect? No, they weren't perfect then, they're not perfect now.
Yeah.
So I've been like really fascinated with these little like phrases. What's the land of sunshine? Come here.
Hmm.
We're nearer the sun. Things look bright all over in Florida. And so I was taking, that was the first time I kind of took one of those ads and used that as like kind of a
Oh,
jumping off point. So a
yeah.
lot of my pieces have a tie to tourism, not all of them, but a lot of them in that show did. So there
Yeah.
was Everglades Gatorland, which was a small roadside attraction that sort of closed as a result of a lot of things, but including, Disney sort of closed down some of those tinier attractions. Bunning the Florist was in there, which was a floral chain, but they had these really like this really iconic architecture that almost looked like a circus tent. So this
Oh,
idea of I'm going to pull people in with this flashy entertainment based look. So a lot of
yeah.
those pieces were sort of like responding to like entertainment or tourist based locations that are no longer with us.
Definitely. No, there's a fracturing, I think, with what to be said about like Florida. The history of Florida is also sort of very interesting, considering like the ways in which it has evolved and it has
Mhm.
developed. So that's really interesting that you kind of bring it together here in your pieces, in your landscape painted pieces, which are kind of also kind of echo that fragmentation as well as like the idea of the changing landscape, the yeah, the changing landscape, which is of South Florida, which is a really interesting kind of concept because it's, it has it's there's just so many layers to the Florida and tourism being one of them, and then also
Mhm.
to the housing crisis. I
Yeah.
mean, like homelessness and things like that. I mean, it's really kind of sort of dense, but it's really, it's one of those interesting like kind of concepts that you sort of start to sort of this not distinguish, but it becomes related to other cities, right? Other metropolis cities that also have a very dense and complex, right? So it's really
Mhm.
interesting to sort of see. And I'm interested, I want to know specifically, and that those paintings are because they do the color, that's oil paint, right? For example, the one that says "Welcome to Eckerd" in right? Is that
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Those
wow?
are those are oil paintings.
Those are incredible. Yeah, no, and I see the color and the way that you kind of, blended everything together. It's really interesting, and it kind of speaks on the connection, right? The connection that we have. But moving forward, I also wanted to know, talk about the ideas of memory, how someone's like, how something like a building sort of is no longer present, right? 5 years from now, like we don't these even if it detrimental, like for example, LA fires, and the Getty Museum was under threat because of those fires, and sometimes it's out of our hands, these things. But I want to know, from your perspective, how you turn memory and history into visual art. If you know,
Yeah, so with a lot of these places, I first either I have a memory or I hear about them. And there's so much research that goes into these works. And that's really also one of the things that led to me making this kind of work. I would just look up this stuff for fun when I wasn't making art about it. I wanted to know, yeah, what happened to that store? Like what led to it not being there anymore? And I would be, like into the night looking up that stuff, even when I wasn't making art about it. And then I have to visit the location. So there were a few of my works recently that are a little further from home. I've had some friends and photographers like send me these amazing photos of these places, and here you can use these as references. And I'm like, great. But then at least I still have to go visit. I feel like even with the most beautiful photos that I'm given permission to use as references, I really need to visit the place and get a sense of it. So
Oh.
there's research, there's visiting, and then I'm, trying to combine what was there then based on stories, what's there now, and just to, I don't think it's possible to kind of tell the whole story. I think of my
Mm-hmm.
work more as a poem than a textbook, that this is my response and view. I think I can only, even dealing with other people's stories, it still is going through my lens. I don't think there's any way to kind of avoid that. But I hope
Yeah.
that it will make people curious. That if you know what, there is something about this. I am curious about this to keep looking, because a lot of that information is really out there. People are remembering them. There's little artifacts that are
Oh
visible,
yeah.
but we have to look for them. But because a lot of these places are now not here, that's art maybe is one of the only ways to remember it. It's not like, when I was, one of the other things that sort of led to this type of work was visiting Italy and seeing that, wow, like there are new things, but they're built on top of the old things. There's always like a little remnant of that
Mm-hmm.
older building, and a nod to what was there. And you rarely find that down here. There's a couple of places that actually do keep some of those records and keep some of that stuff visible, but it's pretty uncommon, at least here in South Florida.
Yeah, no, the idea of the notion of the accumulation of memory also is a really kind of important, I think, feature of society that we don't see. It's really interesting, and I'm talking about like, information that is like essential to, to kind of our survival, and meaning like I'm talking about more like taxes and things like that. And you know what I mean? Like information that's like, like also to can serve as like a way to kind of tie people down to a specific place, to a specific history. And it's really interesting to see that sort of like how do you tell a story, right? How do you tell a story? What does that story, mean? And also, what is it, the larger context of it too? Those are kind of like crucial questions I think that I'm asking myself more and more, now that kind of like I am, for some reason, kind of interested in kind of depicting the figure again. I think everybody goes into different stages, but in depicting that specific figure because I see it more as I see it as a symbol. It's like a symbol, but for a long time, it was like a symbol of what, you have to sit down and think about these things. But um, I also wanted to kind of touch upon the fact that you are the director of the Rosemary Duffy Larson Gallery, and I'm interested in knowing what do you enjoy the most about kind of performing this role.
Yeah, so I've been the director of the Rosemary Duffy Larson Gallery for about 10 years now. Oh, hold on one second, but the light went off in here. Give me one
Oh
second.
no, no problem.
There we go. I'm in my studio and it's on like a timer. I wasn't moving around enough.
Oh, oh, okay.
So yeah, I've been the director of the Rosemary Duffy Larson Gallery for about 10 years. And we have a variety of types of shows. We show faculty work, which is exciting as an educator to show the students, hey, we're professional artists too. We show student work, which is exciting to um, sort of guide them through the process of submitting to a juried exhibition and what are all those steps and kind of sometimes they get disappointed and you have to kind of teach them about that part of being an artist, and sometimes they do get the recognition and that gives them the push to move forward. So those shows are really rewarding, and then the rest of our shows are with artists from all over the world, and that's always exciting because every show is so different. Maybe one show is very traditional paintings on canvas, but then the next one we're hanging hundreds of bike wheels from the ceiling. And
Right.
then maybe the next show are um, prints that are just wallpapering the whole gallery from floor to ceiling, or just anything that you could imagine. We've really shown so many types of artists. We've had performance art. We had an artist build a river in the middle of the gallery.
Oh,
So we've really had so many things come through there. And so for me, it's exciting to work with these artists, see their process,
nice.
really learn from them, but also collaborate with them. And also share my expertise too. Knowing my gallery well, I can help them show their work the best in the best
Mm,
possible light within this space and within our audience. Although our audience is the general community, so much of what we do is for our students because that may be for some of them their only exposure that they would have to a gallery, or maybe that first exposure that inspires them to keep going to galleries and museums. So it's a very multi-layered position, but I feel like I have learned so much and grown so much from acting in that role.
no, that's exciting to be at the threshold of the kind of the gallery world as well, because you really have to, it's like you're saying, you really, it's different. I think ball game, what I've sort of experienced is it's different. It's like you go to school and you do things at school, but then outside, like the gallery itself is like a different sort of also to organization that functions in its own particular ways. And you have to learn how to kind of like navigate the wherever you see yourself fit, seeing that. But showing your work is really important, you know for artists, I think. And that's something that's I think I want to really kind of make sure that everybody understands, because it is really important. It's to kind of, it's not only you making your work and other people seeing it, but it's also to research, right? We're in the studio researching, and like you're saying, you have the research time, and then you kind of, that your work is shown to the public so that everybody can sort of build a kind of a dialogue. It's a discourse. That's how I sort of kind of see it. It's like a discourse, whether it's about, I don't know, important issues like your pieces, for example, about place, and being the ever so changing landscape of Florida, which is very kind of sort of vast, right? It's like very dense, it's multi-layered,
Mhm.
and it's really kind of it's a really fascinating sort of web. I feel that it's really from the idea of like politics to migration to, I mean, so many things that are, to the Everglades, especially, yeah, the Everglades and the beach and things like that. It's also to the parks. But with that in mind, how kind of structures, I mean, like, physical structures, or maybe also to structures that have like this history to them, like, I mean, how they shape your practice, especially as it concerns like residencies. Especially, I know you took part in the IS projects and Oolite Arts. How has that shaped your work?
So, residencies have been so helpful, especially when my work is about place. So really, my first residency right out of grad school was with Oolite, which was when they were art center, and that's when I was actually making the transition into this type of work. And being there was helpful because prior to that, a lot of my work was about, again, it was really personal. It was about home. And now I'm on Miami Beach, a place that even though I'm from South Florida, I wasn't as familiar with. And so I was just kind of getting to know this place and the people and the environment and the buildings. And it was a really great experience. I was only there for 6 months, but it was just there were so many new things happening at the college, and I'm up in Broward, and it was just kind of the like commute, but it was a really wonderful and supportive experience. And then I had a residency for a period of time. Just so many things were in flux with work and having children and all of those things.
Hmm.
So now I'm back to actively seeking that out. And so then I was the last resident artist at IS Projects before Fat Village became no more and they moved to Miami, another Miami paper and printing museum. I hope I'm saying that
Oh,
right. And they're doing amazing. And I'm so happy
oh,
for them. They are wonderful. But that was an interesting experience. It was a shorter residency. They had done a call for artists for their gallery. They had a sort of a storefront gallery space at that time, and you didn't have to be a printmaker to participate in or to submit a proposal for an exhibition. So I said, okay, I hadn't done printmaking in a long time. Let me just submit. And they accepted me. And so even though there was no
nice.
printmaking in the exhibition, they said, would
Hmm.
you like to do like a 2 week residency making some prints? And I was like,
Wow.
yeah, like I'd love to get back into printmaking. And that's when I reconnected with solar plate. I hadn't done solar plate in years. Back then, they were Kodak plates. They weren't even making those anymore. So I really asked them to, like, could you share some expertise on this? And they actually were bringing in an artist, Tom Polius, to do a workshop about solar plates. So he sort of
Wow.
reintroduced me to it. And it's just like, they're such a great organization, not only with their really knowledgeable artists, but they're always bringing in more artists too. So they're just wonderful. And so it was great to reconnect to that medium, but also knowing that I was the last resident artist, that after my show, they were moving house to Miami. The work that
Hmm.
I made while I was there was a response to this place is going to change. This place is going to be gone. And
Yeah.
so, like so many of my works, I think, oh, I wish I could go back in time and I could document things. And here I had this really surreal experience of this is like the quiet before it's gone. So it's really a loss for us in Broward that places like IS Projects and a lot of the other galleries that were there, which were like really great like project spaces where you could experiment and do new things and really connect to the community. But knowing that those things were going to be gone, so the
Yeah.
work that I made there was really a response to that. And now I'm at Bailey Contemporary Arts. It's like a 9 month residency. They bring in 8 artists a year, and it's like a rotating residency. This has been a really great experience. That's where I am now.
Hmm.
That I was able to have a solo show here, and now I'm making work about Pompano. As someone from Broward that's made a lot of work about Broward, I actually had never made anything about Pompano, and I'm learning things
Oh.
about Pompano, very interesting history that I really didn't know and I really wouldn't have known if I wasn't
Mm.
spending so much time in this community. And it's a very, some residencies are more like solitary and some are more like collaborative. And this one is really, they really bring a lot of the public to us and encourage us to communicate with the local community here. So it's been really, really positive. And I'm looking forward to,
Mm.
hopefully, doing more and more, and to really expand the types of places that I'm making work about.
Nice. Yeah. Incredible just to see how the history, how the past, shapes who you are at the as an individual. I think it's such a beautiful, it really puts you into perspective. And going back to the idea of the figures being small and then the landscape enlarging, it just really tells you how much vast the history is of any place that we go to. It's layered with just different kind of relationships, and it's so intriguing just to see how um, I don't know, history sort of is indicative of who we are now as a as a as in society, just depending on kind of history we sort of kind of and that just helps to, I get what I really want to say is that just helps you sort of create a narrative about what we're living through now, right? Like we're trying to ourselves write history or document history in our own sort of unique way, and I find that to be really incredible because we really need those accounts of what the ever-changing landscape of Florida. I can definitely sort of have fond memories of the changing landscape where I'm from, and it's really kind of pinpoints like how you relate to not just like to society but individual other people too. But I'm really also in how your identity sort of changes when you are an artist, when you have to you teach, and then when you also have to wear multiple hats, right? You have to wear a sort, and I'm interested in knowing how what you hope your students that you teach learn, and how does that affect your own art, and maybe even yeah, just want to know
Yeah.
your perspective on that.
So, I mean, like being an educator is like such a big part of me. And so I know that it definitely it informs my work, it affects my work. I've been teaching for 16 years. And so the students, they're really important to me. They keep me young, I think, and
Mhm.
they keep me connected. And I always hope for them that I really encourage them to keep making art, not to always be so hard on themselves, and also to really instill in them the work ethic, because I think so much there is this like the myth of the like artist that you just work when you're inspired, divinely inspired, and it just like flows out of you. And yeah, we all have those moments, and those are magical moments, but so much of it is the discipline of I don't feel like going to the studio today. I don't feel like painting. I'm having trouble with this one piece and I'm so frustrated with it, but I'm going to put that time in. That it's not always enjoyable. Sometimes it is, and like it's the agony and the ecstasy, but you have to put that time in. So yeah, I mean, I think that constructive criticism is really helpful. Having like artistic guides is really important. My approach, I think, is definitely the more nurturing approach. It's just who I am naturally. But I really want to instill in them the aspect of work. It is work. It's the most wonderful work, but it's work.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely work. It's a lot of work, and it's I think the most valuable thing that I understand from, kind of doing all of this and being an artist things is consistency, like being consistent and sticking to your ideas. I think that's also a really important facet that we don't really are not like we are. I guess we are. I get the school does try to kind of prepare you for these instances, but I think those are what I've learned so far. But it's being consistent, not giving up, and just sticking to your ideas and your kind of like your work and yeah, your projects and things like that. But that's really kind of enlightening to sort of hear you sort of talk about your relationship with your students, because at the these students graduate and then they also go out into the field, and then they're also kind of part of the the industry as well. And I really, like you're saying, try to nurture and treat them just like as colleagues and try to nurture their kind of future endeavors. I think that's like the most, when I see other people succeed, I'm like, wow, that's amazing, because that's like
Yeah.
really powerful for our community. Um, and I really wanted to also know, yeah, if you have starting any new projects. I know you say you just moved into your new studio in Pompano. If you maybe want to talk about that, or I want to know any new upcoming projects that you can share here with us, and any rituals or inspirations.
Yeah, so right now I'm here at Bailey Contemporary Arts. I'll be here through early June. And I'm working on some pieces about Pompano. I'm doing some painting, I'm doing some ceramic sculpture. Um, and part of the ceramic sculpture is some of the places that I'm working on. I feel like they were the sort of the bedrock of the community, like the foundation. And so I wanted to kind of use earth, but also we have ceramic facilities here at Baca. So, definitely want
Mm.
to, take advantage of that as well and sort of celebrate what this building has to offer. And I will be showing these in the first Friday in June. We'll have our final show, which will be all 8 of us showing together what we've done while we're here. Right now, I
Oh,
have work in Studio 18. I have 4 pieces, a part of the Sobra Collective. So I'm one of the founding members of the Sobra Collective. And they're a group of mostly Broward-based artists. And it's really about networking, sharing opportunities, sharing knowledge, supporting each other, getting to know each other too. I think it's so
yeah.
important to know the other local artists. And so this was a show curated by Dana Kleinman, Lisa Rockford, Megan Kent, and Sophie Bonnet. And it's a very varied, diverse show. It's really interesting. So that'll be up through, I believe, May at Studio 18 in Pembroke Pines.
Yeah.
And I have 3 pieces in the South Florida Cultural Consortium exhibition at the FAU Schmidt Gallery. And that's up through March. And again, a really amazing group of artists from Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and Monroe counties. So
Great.
that'll be up through March. And yeah, that's definitely been keeping me busy lately for sure.
Great. And that with that being said, we'll just end there. I had one more question, but I don't think we're gonna get to it. But thank you so much for, carving out some time to be here with us. And then
Of
I
course.
appreciate it very much.
All right, thank you. It's always a
Mm,
pleasure speaking with you.
mm.